This is The David Webb Show.
Joining me now, Congressman Michael Guest from Missouri's 3rd District, chair of the subcommittee on border security and enforcement. The implications of the shutdown, Congressman, on enforcement activities, and then, of course, look at what's been going on with the threats, the assaults, the attacks, vehicle ramming attacks on law enforcement, federal or otherwise, from the radicals on the left.
Yeah, as we move into the second week of the government shutdown, we know that there will be federal law enforcement officials when they are paid on Friday. They will receive only a partial payment. Many members of the Department of Homeland Security, particularly Customs and Border Patrol, ICE agents, they are paid on a 2-week cycle. And so when they receive their check this week, even though they've done an amazing job protecting our country, they are not going to be paid for those services. And that is completely because of the government shutdown that we've seen. That is clearly a political shutdown that has been instituted by the Democrats in Congress.
Yeah, the Democrats, I don't think, or at least based on where we are now, plan to stop anytime soon. What's the potential? Can you see any potential outcome for them beyond the constant, whether it's derangement or anti-law enforcement? Is there anything in this for them?
I think that Schumer and the Democrats have been pushed into this shutdown, by the far left. Schumer was criticized heavily when he agreed to keep the government open earlier this year. We know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a very popular member, at least in New York, maybe not as popular here in my home state of Mississippi, has threatened a primary challenge to him. I think, again, this is being based on the fact that Schumer is scared of, one, losing his role as the minority leader in the Senate. He's also scared of a potential primary challenger next election cycle. And look, Republicans have been winning since President Trump was sworn into office. We passed the budget reconciliation bill. We passed the rescissions package. Border encounters along the southwest border have dropped to the lowest number in over 50 years. So we've secured the border. We've lowered taxes. We've defunded Planned Parenthood. We've made a substantial investment in our military. Before this, we started to see that there were positive signs in the economy. We supported our farmers and our agriculture communities. And Democrats are trying to put a halt to that because they fear that President Trump and Republicans will buck the traditional trend of midterm elections. And so I think they're really trying to throw a wrench, if you will, into the system and trying to stop the momentum of the Republican Party.
My guest, Congressman Guest, Michael Guest, and by the way, I mistakenly said Missouri earlier, so I apologize to Mississippi, where you're from, but I mistakenly said Missouri. Some of the very real-world effects, Congressman, of this shutdown on the DHS activities, the things they do, not just in rounding up of illegal aliens, partnering with other agencies, but the counter unmanned aircraft system, cybersecurity information sharing, and more. And of course, the most common one people think of, TSA. Look, I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow evening, and I'm already starting to see the stories about TSA. Will they be there? But they have other very real, very important activities that they carry out. What's the status?
Yeah, right now, if you look at the major agencies within the Department of Homeland Security, so you take Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, TSA, Coast Guard, and Secret Service, 95% of those employees have all been deemed essential employees, which means they are coming to work each and every day. They are performing their job, but they will not be paid until the government is reopened. Now, I'll tell you that I have signed off on legislation, a co-sponsored legislation to, one, both pay our troops and then also to pay our federal law enforcement officials. And so that would be an option for leadership to consider, which would be to bring Congress back to allow us to continue to pay during the course of this shutdown those select group of individuals. I would fully support that because you're right. You look at the mission that these men and women perform, in addition to securing the border and to deporting illegal aliens, stopping drug trafficking. You talk about, TSA, our ability to travel across the country, to be able to get on an airplane. Those are important things that are going to impact the lives of everyday individuals. But more importantly, we need to be supporting law enforcement, particularly at a time when we see increased threats. You mentioned Chicago and what happened in Chicago with officers being ambushed. We saw in Dallas, we saw an ICE facility come under fire. And back in July, there were a dozen people who were arrested in Texas for shooting at an ICE facility and actually striking a local law enforcement officer who responded there to the scene. So we see the increase in attacks on our federal law enforcement who are working so hard to do their job. And now we're asking them to do that job without pay. I think that is wrong, and I think we need to find a way to support both our federal law enforcement officers and our military personnel who are placing themselves in harm's way each and every day.
To the point you brought up earlier in legislation that you've co-sponsored, I would like to see Congress, and this will happen outside of a shutdown, I think more likely than not. Whether it gets done or not is another question. But I'd like to see Congress make some clearer definitions of who gets paid during a future shutdown and who does not. When you think about essential, non-essential, legal definition, administrative definition aside for the moment, it's the role that that employee pays or plays, a military, a key national security aspect, domestic security, key to operation. And I don't know, I think that could take some of the sting, if you will, out of this, repeated battle that goes on in D.C.
I agree. I mean, what we have now is we have the administration, the agency heads. They have the ability to determine who is essential, who is not essential, what government services are open versus what government services are closed. If you remember back in the shutdown, the Obama administration, he did things such as shut down federal parks. He shut down national monuments to make sure that he inflicted the maximum amount of pain on the American public. We've not seen President Trump do that. President Trump, I think, has been very reserved. He has given agency heads the ability to make the determination who is essential and who is not essential. But for all the Democrats talking about how President Trump was going to be laying off massive amounts of federal employees and he was going to be dismantling agencies, we haven't seen that happen. But I do agree that Congress needs to intervene. Once this shutdown is over, Congress needs to have more authority, and we need to put that forth in statute of essential versus not essential, not only employees but also agencies that would close in the time of a government shutdown versus those agencies that should remain open.
My guest, Congressman Michael Guest, appropriately named from Mississippi's 3rd District, Chair of Subcommittee on Border Security and Enforcement. Congressman, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me, David. Have a great day.
You as well, sir. Thank you. And thanks to you and your colleagues for passing clean bills, clean CRs. I love that. 866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874. Quick break. I'll be back. We'll get to the calls.